1.
Good morning, everybody. Depending on the time zone we are meeting you at, my name is Judith Helfman, and I'm very happy to welcome you here today for the opening panel. What is the value for corporates investing in forestry and biodiversity? We're not starting any smaller than this today, and I have a great panel here with me this morning. Sitting in Berlin, this is morning time, and I would very much like to welcome you as the audience and also my speakers. I have Flora G here, who is Vice President at Shell. I have Jan Borger from Coca-Cola as a Director Climate and Water Sustainability, and we have James Liu, who is who is Head of Product at Land Life. Thank you very much for joining me here this morning. We will discuss how to build the business case and how to get more people and investors interested in the potential that we all see concerning natural-based solutions. And I would like to ask Flora G to start with a short introduction of herself and the project that she is leading in her company. Welcome, Flora.
Thank you so much, Judith. Good morning to you. Hi, everyone. Very nice to meet you virtually. I hope everyone is keeping well and you all had a wonderful start to 2022. It's a great honor to be back to this forum and to meet so many audience virtually. A little bit about myself and then about what we do in Shell Nature-Based Solutions, and also probably just a snapshot of the projects and challenges we see in the market. So from my personal side, I'm Flora G. I'm based in Singapore. I've been leading Shell's global nature-based solution business over the past few years. And today we're an organization of about 100 people sitting across 16 countries. And we work on the investment into protection, enhancement, and restoration of various natural ecosystems, including forest, wetland, grassland, agriculture, and also coastal ecosystems. The projects we do, as I already alluded to, really cover the conservation activities, but beyond that, also reforestation, afforestation, soil carbon, regenerative agriculture, peatland restoration, and also mangrove plantation projects. Today, we have established positions in countries like Australia, China, India, Indonesia, Philippines, and also in Latin American countries and North America, in addition to some African positions. All of these projects we do, we work with partners in the ground, including local communities and NGOs and government agencies. For me, NBS is about collaboration. It requires joint efforts because climate change is very real, and corporates, and my plea to the corporates is to really embed nature and natural ecosystem investment into the investment philosophy. And that is the way for us to jointly tackle this crisis in front of all of us. So I will just take a pause here, Judith, and hand over back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that start. Flora, I well understand that you have a whole group that is working on natural-based solutions. And how big is it, and when did the activity start? Because really it's nothing that people usually would know about looking at Shell as a company.
Yes, indeed. So how big is it? Today we are a team of 97 people. We're reaching 100 very soon. And these are the people directly sitting in Shell's nature-based solutions. Beyond this group, within Shell, we also have biodomain scientists, agriculture scientists, R&D team, and also trading desks. They're also focused on NBS and carbon markets. So in total, we're talking about more than 170 people. When did Shell start to look into nature-based solutions? Probably from the environmental products perspective, that's a long time ago, because we started by working in the compliance market. about 10 years ago, but then directly into nature-based solutions. This was dated back to 2017. We started to look into nature-based solutions as a potential pathway to tackle the climate change, in addition to the energy system transition. And then starting from 2018, we started to set up a team. And from 2019, we started to make our investment into various projects and also working with communities and government to really enhance and restore various natural ecosystems in different countries.
So you're really a fast-growing group within the Shell universe.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Okay, we will look at the potential that Shell sees behind it again later on, because I'm sure many in the audience will have the question, does it all start as CSR or is there business behind it? But we look at that in a second. Jan, let me come over to you. You are Director for Climate and Water Sustainability for Europe. At least Coca-Cola is not connected to oil, but to water, which seems to be more natural to many people, I believe. What are the solutions or what are the projects that Coca-Cola is looking at concerning nature-based solutions, and maybe also why?
Yeah, well, thank you, Judith. Good day, everyone. Happy to have me on the panel this morning, and yeah, I'm working on climate and water for Coca-Cola in Europe, together with our bottlers, for implementing our strategy. And indeed, as you say, water is our main ingredient. So that's why we started already in 2007 by making the commitment to replenish the water we use in our products. We have been investing over the past 15 years in projects that restore water, and many of them are nature-based solutions. So in 2015, we already reached globally our target of 100%, so 5 years ahead. And now we are globally at 170% of the water that we use in our products, but we want to do more. Because we want to replenish the water where it matters the most. So meaning near our bottling operations, near the areas where we source our ingredients, for instance. And that's why we have been investing in nature-based solutions together with our local partners. Many of the times, those partners are like WWF, so very knowledgeable people that work on the ground with those projects. But then we realized that those projects also have a lot of other benefits than only water. So for instance, in climate, but also biodiversity. And we started to explore last year how to quantify and monetize those benefits. And that's why we developed a methodology to calculate in what they call the natural capital of those projects. And we really want to come together with the stakeholders, with the industry, to align on a one methodology to calculate the natural capital, because we think that is essential for making the business case for investing in nature-based solutions in the future.
Is that, as I already announced to Flora, is it really important to have a business case? I mean, you probably started off in, what did you say, 2007 as a corporate responsibility project, I assume. And then how did the idea develop that this is a lot more, that there's a lot more to it than just corporate responsibility? Because it flows very easily when you say natural capital and everything. Tell us more about it.
Of course, we started to invest in those projects like wetland restorations and river plain restorations, but from the point of water, because water is, of course, very important for us. Without water, no Coke. And but we also realized that there are considerable, let's say, social benefits to those projects. And in order to drive the investments in those projects, we really wanted to quantify them, because when you are able to quantify, then you are also able to attract more investments and people that want to work together with us on that. So it started indeed as a CSR objective, but now we think there is a business case to be made, particularly because our sustainability strategy also has moved on. For instance, when you look at climate, we have committed to a net zero target in Europe by 2040. And that means that we also need to think about offsetting of our emissions that we cannot avoid in the future. And that's why the business case of those nature-based solutions is important, because that will drive the investments, not only by us, but also by other partners in society.
Okay, so like now or a midterm basis, you are looking for investors to join your projects. And here we are not talking about just impact, but about real capital investments.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a look into that in a minute. First of all, let's look at James and LandLife. You're not speaking for a brand itself, but you're working with several brands. What's your mission concerning natural-based solutions, James?
Yeah, so maybe setting a context here. So I think I really like that you asked that question. Is business case important? I would say absolutely. So because nature-based solution is the core business and the whole being of LandLife. So our mission is to help tackle land degradation in our lifetime. We specialize in tree planting on degraded land. In the UN definition, that means where nature needs help, or it cannot come back unaided. What we're different is that you will classify us typically as a developer, but I think at the core, we are a tree planting company above all else. We have boots on the ground on 4 continents. I think we're a few months away from wrapping up our 2021 planting season. And by the end of it, we will plant something like over 4 million trees. Basically what we do is, we go from June to June, any couple of months, we'll be planting trees somewhere across the globe. I'm having a lazy background in the end. That's one of our plantings in northern Spain, where you can see we're testing some of the mechanical planting equipment heads. And also just to hide the fact that I just moved, so it's a mess in the back. Anyway, I think maybe what is it? We're a team of 60 people and growing very fast. We've been doing a 3x, 4x, 5x growth in the last couple of years. I think we maybe in terms of what excites me about this event is that I think everyone here understood that investing in nature is fundamentally very different than investing in a piece of mechanical equipment, right? It's infinitely more complex, but infinitely more wonderful. I think we're getting a lot better at capturing that complexity and managing that, and also finding really concrete cases to make that rewardingness of nature and then connect that to real business cases where people can invest behind. So yeah.
Just let's go back to the start. Your start. When did you start, and basically why? I mean, you don't wake up one day and say, "Hey, come on, let's plant trees."
Well, that basically is what happened. So we started out back in 2013. I think back then, we started with before reforestation was hip and really gaining traction. I think back then it was a very sort of government budget or donation dominated world. And I think, we have this dream to say, we want to solve land degradation. And in order to do so, this, planting, taking care of, and the growing of trees need to be a sector. And that means cutting edge technology. That means concrete business case. That means that, people can plan ahead, invest ahead, and just, keep investing in the same geography, build partnership. We started out with a single tool in the shed called the Cocoon. It's basically a paper donut that, it's a modernized version of ancient technology that help you plant trees in really difficult places.
Okay.
It was a very different time. And then one thing led to the other. We want to prove to some of our customers that our technology worked, and we accidentally get into doing the project end-to-end ourselves. And we found that, our principals are, we're, half of the team, half of the company, if not more, are people with, agronomist background, with, technology background. And we found that sort of our approach to tree planting, diverse species, thinking really through before we execute anything, using technology to be efficient and fast, it really helped us. And then fast forward today, our scale is completely different. That's sort of that's where the journey goes.
Okay. Thank you very much, James. I think we have a rough picture of what Land Life is doing. And we also have a first question from the audience. And I have to say, I'm very happy about that. And I would like to ask all of you in the audience to keep sending questions. We have them forwarded to us here to our panel discussion. And of course, the aim of this session is to teaser and then to get into a real discussion with you. So thank you, Sebastian, for daring the first question. And that is, how do you make your customers take part in your efforts? I'm not quite sure who you're asking this question to, but I suppose it can be a question to all three. So maybe we can just make a round with that question before I come up with some more question myself. James, while you're at it, do you want to start on that question and then we take turns over to Flora?
Sure. I think we have a natural advantage. So because of where we work, we started out trying to solve a technical challenge, which means that we focus on countries sort of in the developed world more than the developing world, which means that we're actually usually very close to companies, customers, their employees, their core stakeholders, or their areas of operation. So by extension, of course, they are a lot closer to the project. They don't always participate because, our philosophy is let a specialist do the specialist work. But, what we do is we try to show it through transparency, right? So, we have an internal dashboard where we say, hey, you planted tree, these trees are planted because of you. This is the species, this is the context, this is the story. And every time we go to the field, we monitor, we relay that information directly to them, where they can use that to engage with their customers subsequently, or their stakeholders, their board. So in short, through technology, and of course, if people are nearby and where we work, put them directly in contact with relevance to anyone that is of interest to them.
So on your dashboard, you have kind of real-time monitoring, and I can look how my trees are doing?
Well, real time is, if you stream nature, you will fall asleep. But as frequent as we can, you cannot fast forward nature, but indeed any real time information, any new information we get, we're transferring that directly through our dashboard.
Okay, thank you very much. Flora, how is it in your case? How much are your customers interested, to be a little bit provocative, in what you're doing, and how do you make them take part or let them participate?
Yeah, so I think this rooted back to the Shell strategy in a way. We set up our strategy to become a net zero energy business by 2050, and we also then defined what is going to be the milestone by 2030 and 2035, and so on and so forth. On that basis, the whole net carbon footprint for Shell covers both Scope 1, Scope 2, but also Scope 3. And as you know, Scope 3 refers to the carbon emissions actually generated from the products our customers decide to buy from the Shell portfolio. This is beyond the Shell delivery point, but more at the customer side. But for the Shell net carbon footprint, we also include Scope 3 into our calculation. So now it comes to the point how to really help to drive the net zero pathway by 2050 along these three scopes. So in a way, first of all, Scope 3 occupies more than 87% of the total net carbon footprint in the Shell portfolio, which is a huge amount of number in a way. And secondly, it also about the mitigation hierarchy. First and foremost is really about avoidance of carbon emission, and then it's about reduction of carbon emission. Only then we're going to look into offset of the hard to abate carbon emissions. So in specific to the offset part, what we do is to really, look into the potential customer offerings for example, consider bundle carbon credits, nature-based carbon credits with our energy products and offer these to our customers. And then customers can opt to take this offer or not based on their wishes and their personal or organizational carbon footprint. Last year, we launched about the carbon neutral or carbon compensation offerings in about a dozen of mobility more like the retail stations in different countries. And we also do this in a few other lines of business like LNG cargoes, lubricants products, etc. So this is the current approach we're taking. We try to make it a visible offering to the customers and bring our customers along with us. And this is fundamentally rooted in the philosophy to really tackle climate change. It requires behavior change. It's never going to be a single action by a single organization or corporate. It also needs to be pinned down to others. Yeah.
Absolutely. It would be too easy if that would be possible. Jan, how about your customers? And
so our customers are, for instance, the big retailers. And of course, we talk with them also a lot about sustainability, and they are very interested in what we do, also in investing in nature-based solutions. We don't have yet projects together with our customers, but it's definitely a very good opportunity because we can then increase the impact that we can have. So today, the project that we have done so far, which are more than 300 globally, is done only by us. But if we can leverage the cooperation across others, then we can make the impact bigger. And here I want to call out specifically working together with suppliers, because that's something we do with our agricultural suppliers, like food suppliers and juice suppliers. So we do have projects in the agriculture way, so where we try to help farmers by producing our ingredients in a more efficient, water efficient way. And most of the time, there are other benefits attached to that, whether that is for climate or biodiversity as well. So we do work with suppliers, and we are working more and more with, we're looking for opportunities to integrate that in our supply chain as well.
Yeah, I think especially in your case, also the end consumer is quite an interesting group, maybe different from, I don't know, getting gasoline at a station, drinking Coke is a different consumer experience. So that's probably going to be in your focus as well.
Yeah, consumers is also a focus. However, it's more complex. So to explain, we of course explain to consumers what we do on sustainability, but the focus for consumers is not really yet in this area of nature-based solutions. The focus of consumers is what we know is more focused on packaging, for instance.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, we do get lots and lots of questions, which I really enjoy. I did not expect our audience to be so active right away, so that's great. I try to cluster them a little bit. I think quite an interesting question is from Alistair, and that is, how do you ensure that investments are really credible and have effective environmental and social safeguards? And that kind of goes along for me with another question, so maybe we can answer the two at the same time. That is a question, which initiatives are taken to monitor the long-term effectivity of your nature-based solution projects? So whoever wants to jump in to answer that double question.
Yeah, I would like to give an answer. Yeah, I fully agree that it is really important to have a solid methodology to demonstrate the credibility of the benefits that you are claiming. And of course, we know the system for the carbon credits, but also for our water benefits, we have quite a rigorous process in place to make sure that the water quantification we do, we have established methods for that. And those are then also reviewed by a third party, by an auditor, and only then we can report them. And it's also important to assure that the benefits continue. So we typically visit every project every 2 years to make sure that all the measures that were put in place are maintained. And we have a maximum period of time that the quantification of the benefits can count for us. But it's also really important to align on a methodology to quantify the benefits, and that everybody is using the same method for that, because otherwise you get into the area of greenwashing, and that's absolutely something we need to avoid for sure.
Absolutely. Let me just ask or put a little extra question on before maybe we hand over to Flora. If we want projects to be sustainable, then it's usually all about engaging local communities. So how is that done? That is also a question from the audience, from Flavia.
You're asking that to me? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can just add on that, and then we hand over to Flora.
So we are not the ones that do the project themselves. We work with local partners that have projects on the ground, and they have usually also very good connections with the local communities. So we typically also want to make sure that the local community can benefit from the project as well. So that means that we are most of the time also providing means for education. So we have visitor facilities so that people can visit the area. We have bird watching towers, all kind of features that also will help for the local community to be able to benefit from the project and experience the improvement in the biodiversity and the nature.
Okay, thank you very much for adding on that topic. Flora, how about you? Should I repeat the questions, or are you still good?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, Judith.
Okay,
first of all, I really compliment the question itself because it's an emphasis about long-term commitment. As we all know, nature and natural ecosystem services, this type of investment is not about a short spin-off investment. You do it for 1 or 2 years, and then you can walk away and you expect everything will be sustained. That's not the case. And that's why, you know, private sector corporate participation is important, because we somehow as corporates come into everything with a long-term view and long-term commitment from both financial, operational, and governance perspectives. So how do we really ensure the social environmental elements will be really taken care and somehow safeguarded in these projects? I probably will cover this from 3 perspectives. The first one is very similar to what Yan just shared, is about the technical robustness and technical rigor. I think this is somehow governed by the, you know, public process in a way, being VERA or gold standard, whatever platform protocols we choose to use. That's like the basics. But in addition to these standards, we also use extra, you know, scrutiny to really make sure all of these technical design and development, they not only can survive the standards today, but they also can survive the standards evolution over the coming decades. So this will require some extra consideration. Secondly, it's about governance. So Apologies all. So about governance, and this is really about, how to make sure the way we operate and how we engage with all the stakeholders in this ground will be taken care in a sustainable way. And thirdly, is about the community engagement, which is the additional question in a way. I really feel, when people ask me what is nature-based solutions, very often I allude to answer that it's more about management practice change. It's about change the behavior of the people and communities, indigenous groups, everyone who rely on this natural ecosystem. So from that perspective, we actually, really need to start with the social impact assessment, the ground truthing, to pin down to the point, what does the local community really need, want, and desire? So then it's about very consistent implementation over the coming decades, and also have a kind of open mind mentality to adjust your community sharing mechanism along the journey to ensure the sustainability. So I just take a pause here. Thank you, Judith.
That's great. Thank you very much, Flora. It's really complex projects, that's for sure. Let me come to a couple of questions to James. James, really the financing of your projects gets all sorts of questions. So for example, how about the shift you've seen from the customer being government and public spending to the private sector, and how you're seeing that going forward, and how is the actual spending investment by corporates, and what are the drivers, and what are the drivers to accelerate that shift, and also the question, sorry, there was another question concerning the financing. Exactly. How do you track the tree planting programs for the success of the planting? Like, do you move on, and what's the average survival rate? Yeah, that's the second question I would like to put in at this point, but there are more to come.
Yeah.
James, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I can sort of answer them in a sort of in a sequence. So I think indeed the observation is absolutely right. We initially, when we started, we target public funding. Government is going to plant trees, they're going to need help, and we're going to be that technical solution provider. And we notice indeed, maybe 10, 20 years ago, a forestry department will have 50% of the budget for taking care of trees and 50% planting trees. Fast forward to today, a lot of them, most of the budget are consumed for, fighting emergencies like fire, like a lot of things. And then they usually find themselves with land where they say, if we have the budget, we would love to plant trees, but we lack the, the personnel, the capacity to do so. And that will soon touch on the business case. So, slowly we're gravitated towards having conversation with the corporate companies. And then indeed, initially the conversation is tend to gravitate towards the CSR department in the beginning. And I think the CSR department 10 years ago versus the CSR department today are very different. In the past, it's very reporting, just understanding, and then, what can we do? How do we, minimize our impact, right? So today the conversation is our impact is X. If we invest in Y, this is the amount of positive impact we could create. So the conversation is completely different. And we leverage on that shift to say, hey, look, there is a fundamental sort of a sweet spot here where we have potentially a large parts of public or pseudo-public or land where we see there's strong permanence protection, there's a line incentive to put trees back as it were, or as it should be. And then you have a group of companies who say, look, I need to get to net zero. I'm willing to invest the project and take the risk. So in the past, people buy credits, right? So nowadays they're willing to say, I will invest the full tree planting ourselves. I will take on the exposure. If it performs well, if it performs slightly unwell, we're going to take the exposure, but we want to be part of that supply generation. So that's where we come in. We find these landowners who really had the right mind to say, I want to establish a long-lasting forest. And then we find the customers, corporate customers, to say, I care about the impact over time. So I don't necessarily need to get all the supply today to remove all my unavoidable footprints because sometimes you have supply constraints, but they want to invest in the creation of large scale, high quality and sort of long lasting projects. And the last question is, what role do we play, right? So do we plan and walk away? I think fundamentally, in terms of principle, we want to minimize disturbance of nature. So, right, we want to give nature a helping hand. So the word sustainable means that you don't have to constantly interfere with nature, but it doesn't mean we walk away, right? We have a team everywhere we operate. For us, we have an egotistic interest of we want the data. Data is how you get better and smarter and better every season. So we, what we do is we say, hey, government, dear government partners, you have the capability to manage the land. You just lack the funding, the execution capacity. We do that, and we monitor for you. But you have the incentive and the ability to take care of the land in the long term, as per local practice, and best practices most of the time. So that's how it is. We're always there, and if you want survival rate data, indeed, it changes a lot, right? So a tree in Australia versus a tree in Spain is very different, but I think as a rule of thumb, we typically, I think we don't plant high density. We try to make sure every tree can live as much as possible, but we don't dream of every tree surviving. It's just the way how nature works. We typically plan that, between 80–70% of the trees will survive to maturity. And then that's how sort of, we plant 1,000, we're expecting that the long-term healthy establishment rate is something like 700 trees over time. At some point, it might not be the trees we plant anymore, but it's still a healthy forest.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you very much, James. Then coming from the issue of governments financing it at the beginning, you said that the projects are mainly in the developed world at the time being. Is that a strategy of yours, or is it just how the funding happens?
It's a bit of both, right? So one is when we've take an example. It's a conversation with the airline company in the past, and they say, look, if I want to fund a project, I want to fund it either where my customers take off or land, rather than a project that have no flights or no connections with. And by nature, of course, back then the funders are in Europe, in the US, and some of them in Australia. So that's sort of a natural gravitation towards that. That's the commercial end of it. On the practical end of it is we set out to solve a technical problem. And there's a big word, permanence. That there is someone promising, I will not cut a tree. I will use it or treat it the way with respect. I think the reality is that there are jurisdictions that are a lot harder to check and to constantly to make sure that happens. That's why we chose to start in the countries near our operating style, near our culture, near our legal jurisdiction. But I think we're slowly moving back into developing economies as well. So we're planting a project in Indonesia that is not for carbon but for conservation purposes, and we're looking at different projects in those areas.
Okay, whenever you say it's for carbon, then you also generate the revenues from the generation and the sale of the carbon credits, right?
Yes. Well, so no. So what we do is we let the corporate invest in it, and the corporate basically so we don't sell the guaranteed carbon credits. What we say is this: we arrange it in a way that the landowner will assign you the first 40 years of the carbon right, whatever comes may.
Okay.
And then we transfer it directly to people funding it, and we just take care of the planting and the monitoring.
Okay, so basically you are out of carbon credits yourself.
Yes, but we are registering every project we plan. We're trying to register that on the verified carbon standard, for example.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, James. We have more good questions. I mean, all questions are good, but more questions that I would like to have here in the panel. And that is one question that goes to Jan. First of all, thank you from I don't know who asked that question, but thank you for the quantification of benefits. And do you also have measurements to quantify your long-term impact on biodiversity? And based on that, do good with your interventions, or maybe one of the others. So we can start with Jan, and anybody who wants to jump in is more than welcome.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question, because indeed, in our methodology that we developed with Denkstadt, our consultant, we also looked at biodiversity and how to quantify that. But actually, there is not a good method yet to quantify that. So what we have done is to develop more like a qualitative approach, also with the local partners that we work with on the ground, to measure at least let's say changes in the biodiversity, whether that is the number of bird species or the number of insects, or and usually you have kind of indicator species that are used for more, let's say, the qualitative approach. But this is definitely an area that needs further development in order to be able to quantify this more. But today, in the methodology that we have, is more like a qualitative approach that we use. But that doesn't mean that is not important. The qualitative approach is also important to have that information for your projects in order to decide whether you want to invest in that or not. And the same can happen with social benefits. Sometimes it's also not possible to quantify that exactly, but to be able to have a more qualitative approach and take that into account into your decisions is also valuable.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
If I might add on this to this, just very briefly, I think biodiversity monitoring, measurement, and also reporting is a topic the industry is really very actively looking into. And the reason of that, one is because it is super important. Two is because there is no good enough solution today. So it means that this requires technology solution and technology evolution in a way. So for example, recently we started to look into environmental DNA. It's called eDNA, and this is an approach you can somehow use to track, how many animals in this ecosystem and find ways to quantify them and so on and so forth. It's not yet a pure, technically mature technology yet, but we have good confidence. You just need to find the right pilots and put this data together with data management, data points, and so on and so forth, and gradually, have a solution in this space. Yeah.
Great, Flora, you were definitely already leading me to closing questions. I get so carried away by all the questions that we have from the audience. We could fill another 2 hours, to be quite honest. But I think it's good that we opened up this conference with such an interesting discussion. And we have many more specialized panels to come throughout the next 2 days. So no worries, you will be able to ask all your questions, and you can also network, saying that to the audience and make single appointments, etc. I think this is all very well set up. Okay, so Flora, if you say we don't have this and that yet, looking into the very near future, I mean, you only basically started in 2019. Let's look just 2 years ahead. What's your wish for that? If we meet again in 2 years, what will you tell us?
Yes, I feel for the NBS and nature to really unleash potential to tackle climate change, there are 3 things I really hope all of us together in this call and beyond this call will work closely to tackle this. The first one is about the integrity of NBS programs. We need to safeguard this and make sure the quality and integrity are really good, can survive several decades scrutiny. And second one is about collaboration, because I don't feel any single person, organization, or corporate can resolve the climate change crisis we're all facing. This requires a lot of collaboration among us as corporates and beyond us with the public service sector and local communities, very important. And the last one I would say is really about technology solution. For NBS to go for its impact, it requires scalability and materiality. Without technical and technology solution, it is not possible. So these are the three things we're very committed to, and I and my team are working on day in and day out, and look forward to further collaboration with everyone.
Perfect, Flora. I noted those 3 questions, and I will come back with them in 2 years' time. Just quickly over, we are just told we only have a minute left to Jan. I know that you have a report coming up, but also if you talk again in 2 years, what are your 3 big points?
Yeah. So for us, indeed, making the business case for investments in nature is really critical, because we believe indeed biodiversity is essential for sustainable food systems. And in order to make that business case, we really need to align on a methodology how to quantify the benefits. And that's what we have been exploring. And now there is a progress report that will be shared in the conference materials later today, so that you can all have a look at that and see what we propose to do. And I hope that in the next 2 years, we can come together as an industry and as stakeholders to align on that methodology, because that will help driving the investments in nature forward.
Great. Thank you very much, Jan. I'm also looking forward to that report. James, talking about planting forests, 2 years are a ridiculous period of time. Nevertheless, what will you let us know in 2 years' time?
Well, it's a bit of a prediction rather than wishes sometimes, but the first and foremost, it's inevitable, but I wanted to, it's competition. It cannot be just land life. It needs to be 10, 20, 30 more land lives on the world to execute at the scale the world needs. I look forward to the challenge. That's one. And the second thing, I think, indeed, as what everyone said, the integrity of it, the really long-term thinking, everyone's investment horizon need to be a little bit longer out, however it makes sense. But I think that is what investing nature naturally means. And if that paradigm shift is there, it's very helpful. Last one, and I'll be very quick, is risk management. Right, so I have a financial background. I think we can learn a lot from the likes of the insurance companies and so on. Yeah, I think it's wonderfully complex, and I'm sure there's a good way that we can manage that complexity in the future.
Perfect. I'm sure that everybody learned today that it is wonderfully complex. I would like to thank the audience for all the great questions. Sorry we couldn't answer all of them. Make use of all the networking possibilities that this conference is offering. And then thanks to James, to Jan, and to Flora. Have a great day and 2 days of conference. Thank you very much for all your input.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.